We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. Boxing Ego unpack. Yeah. We unpack. We unpack. We unpack. Coming to you live. What can I say? Gotcha. Man, I enjoy being right. Terence Crawford defeating Canelo has the division in shambles. Let your boy Ego get unpacked just as I stated, and I will break it down for you, right? What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, I do enjoy being right. If I'm right, I'm right. Give me my credit. If I'm wrong, so be it. I'll take that too. I'm human. Sue me, right? But when it comes to Canelo Crawford, I was 100% right. And I will explain in this video. Now, I don't know what motivates some of you guys. Some people are motivated by money, family. I don't know. I don't know what your motivation is. But when I was saying what I was saying about the Canelo Crawford, I very well articulated what I didn't like about the particular fight, right? I illustrated it. I'm excellent with my words, a great wordsmith, so you don't have to worry about me stuttering, stammering, can't get through the video, reading cue cards to do a 7-minute video or whatnot. So I speak eloquently, I deliver the information, and I take the thoughts out of my brain and give it to you in an articulate way, right? So some people said, 10-minute video here, 20, 15, whatever length the video was. Some people said, oh man, you're just hating. You're hating on Canelo. You're hating on Bud. As if I just speak for 15 minutes because I need to hate on the next person. So what I said I did not like about the fight is I called it a video game fight. And that's basically a fight like this fight, a fight like Tank and Jake Paul. But there's a lot of people trying to make the correlation. They're like, oh, but Ego, what about Tank? Tank and Jake Paul. I've said the same thing. I don't really care for that fight, but I understand it. That's all I've said about the fight. And I still remain steadfast in that belief. I don't care about the fight. I'm a diehard boxing fan. So that fight is like a freakish weight difference. This is not something that I cared about, but I understand it. That's what I said. I still believe that. You got to understand, this ties back to Turkey, Al-Sheikh, and Canelo Alvarez. Canelo was in talks to fight Jake Paul. For me, that made more sense because Canelo has been looking more faded, but he's at least fought 168, 175, right? Whereas Jake Paul's in the 190s to 200 versus Mike Tyson. So for me, a fight with Canelo, being that he's a big dude and he has a decorated resume, it kind of made more sense to have him fight Jake Paul. I said this from the beginning, and that fight would generate a lot of money. But Canelo got greedy and got lured by the Saudis to do a 4-fight deal because it was guaranteed money for mostly cherry picks, because the Crawford fight on paper was still a smaller person. So Canelo probably thought that Crawford wasn't going to come with the steez like he did and wasn't going to do this to his face. But he had every intentions of thinking Crawford wouldn't be able to withstand his power. He just was in for a rude awakening. So make no mistake about it, this was the fight, and it made more sense from all perspectives. Canelo being a bigger dude, Canelo being older than Tank. Tank's like 135 pounds in light. Jake Paul's 190. You know what I mean? So that's his own thing. But a lot of people are trying to make this comparison. Oh, but Tank and Jake Paul. I understand it. because of money, period. Not like this is the best fight and I requested the fight. I never said that. I understand it. Canelo left Jake Paul high and dry. He's a businessman turned fighter, so he's looking for his next opponent, and he wanted a big name. He already fought Chavez Jr., so he took a huge name in the sport because he couldn't get Canelo, so he took the other face of boxing despite a freakish weight advantage. But even with the Jake Paul Tank fight, some people aren't going to like it, but it's going to do numbers. I don't care what nobody's talking about. It'll do numbers. So that's why I understand it, because that's all they're in it for, to do numbers. And the fight is labeled as an exhibition. So when you get a quote unquote, as Ego calls it, video game fight with the fight that's labeled an exhibition, Floyd Mayweather, Logan Paul, Jake Paul, and a guy like Tank, you know what I mean, Chavez Sr. coming back out of retirement to fight somebody, I don't really care, because they're telling you up front, this is an exhibition, and Muhammad Ali did exhibitions. So if you know what an exhibition, I'm not your babysitter. So if you don't know what an exhibition is, you should probably get off my my video right now and read a Webster's dictionary. So that is the difference. You get it? For example, Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, right? Tank Davis is not going to stay at 190 pounds or whatever he comes in weighing for the fight, right? It's an exhibition, so he's probably just not going to cut weight. You see what I'm saying? And he's going to enter this fight. That's what's going to happen there, right? Versus Canelo Crawford. They hyped it up, said it was for all the belts and yada, yada, yada. It was. But then now the whole division is displaced. You dig? You got Crawford, who fights one time a year for the last 5 years. So I don't see that changing, right? I don't see that changing this year, where he just had a big win. Why would he come back and fight anything lesser than Canelo this year particularly? So now I feel like the super middleweight division is pretty much DEAD. It's an unalive division, because until Crawford, who is the man of the hour with all the belts, makes a decision, like, some of you guys don't understand, I am the best in the business, and it's not even close. He had the 154 belt since August of last year, right? He just now vacated it. It was just now officially vacated, like last week, like after the Canelo fight or whatever, right around the Canelo fight. So that's what's happening in boxing. That's why I didn't like the fight. Not that I don't want Crawford to get his shine or set milestones. I just knew it wouldn't be a fight bigger than Mayweather-Pacquiao, fight of the century, all that stuff that they were saying, and I was right there too. They literally had tickets that they were selling the day before, where the tickets went from $12,000 to $1,100 within a day. So they did whatever they had to do to pack out the building, probably gave a lot of freebies and comps. And again, now the division is in disarray. For Canelo, he just looks dumb. You fought a smaller man. I told you, if he loses to Bud, it's going to be not like any of these other, because you could lose to a Bivol, and we know he's bigger than you, and we know he's good. So you have almost like a built-in excuse. Same if Crawford would have lost to Canelo. That's why I didn't like the fight. If Crawford would have got knocked out or lost to Canelo, then people would just be like, oh, Canelo was too strong, too big. Similar to what people did when Kell Brook got stopped and his eye broken by Triple G. Hey, no, guys. Hey, Max, guys. Not, you know what I mean? So when you strip that away, take away all advantages from Crawford, which is the only way Canelo plays because he overplays that A-side hand, right? So you took away every advantage he has, and he still beat you. Now you're in shambles. People are calling for you to retire. Some people are saying get a black trainer. What is a black trainer? Like, why did they try to throw it and make it a black problem after Canelo said, I'm sticking with Eddie Reynoso forever. And then now he got whooped by a black fighter. And now fans are suggesting that Canelo get a black trainer. I don't recommend it. You are 35, around 35 years old, but in boxing years, you're an old 35. So switching trainers, even if you get a skilled, technical black trainer or Bomac or Derek James or whoever, Buddy McGirt, you're kind of set in your ways when you've been fighting since 15. You know what I mean? You made this type of money. So this is what I didn't like about the fight. And I know some people, they try, some people, I'm used to it. It's the internet. Some people, they argue tooth and nail, like they don't have no life. All they do is get up and they want to argue with content creators and stuff. I say stuff for a reason. And now I feel vindicated. You got Janabek's old coach, and he's saying that he don't think Janabek at 160 has what it takes to beat Crawford. That's one of the champions. Crawford talked about maybe going back down to 160, right? So Janabek's not a big name either. So who wants to see the fight when his old trainer is saying, I don't think Janabek can beat the boy, right? You got Lotta, but he's like 40, 41 years old. I mean, that's not like an in-prime fight. You got Crawford, who may decide I've done everything and I want to retire, but now it's just a waiting game, right? We just got to wait because he's earned it. So he's going to make the call when he wants to make the call. He's earned that right. He also got a cut, so that's another reason you see right there why I don't think he's coming back this year, right? So all in all, what did this fight do? What did this fight do? I just read a report about Vegas construction is down and everything is down. So it's not like it brought this crazy cash flow into Vegas, for fight week and stuff like that. They just laid off a bunch of, just look it up. Don't take my word for it. They laid off a bunch of construction workers in Vegas, and people are complaining about layoffs at the casinos and whatnot. But again, that's more world news and economy. So you guys look that up. So again, Turkey got his wish by making the fight. And now look at where the game is. Stagnant with no real direction in these divisions. Versus me, what I always said, Crawford, I think he's more of a natural 154 pounder, right? He only had one fight there. So I think he could have continued to fight there. And he was a belt holder there, right? Virgil Ortiz is about to fight Erickson Lubin. 154 is probably the most stacked division in boxing currently. I really believe that. So for me, Crawford actually had more options staying in the division he had just moved to, as opposed to moving up to 168, where you're probably not all the way comfortable. And if you are, you can show me by fighting Diego Pacheco or, a lesser known dangerous foe at 168, right? Now it's just the game is all messed up, right? The other thing, David Benavidez had recently, before the Canelo Crawford fight happened, you see, Google AI. Yes, David Benavidez has stated Turki Al-Sheikh wants to arrange a fight between him and Canelo Alvarez as the culmination of Alvarez's 4-fight deal. But this relies on Canelo's willingness to accept the match. So again, before Canelo Crawford, I told you I'm always right. Before Canelo Crawford, Benavidez came out with this brand new interview stating he talked to Turki. He's doing a fight with Turki in the form of a November card with Anthony Yard as the headliner. So they're already working together on his next fight. And he says he wants it to be part of Canelo's 4-fight deal. But if you can't beat a welterweight Terence Crawford, you're not fighting a David Benavidez. Also, Canelo never fought David Benavidez when he was on a win streak or at any time before he lost to Bivol, after he lost to Bivol. Again, if you are looking rusty, no jabs, Canelo had like 6, 7 jabs in this fight. How are you going to beat a skilled black American style like Crawford with 6 or 7 jabs? So the output was pathetic. Canelo's been doing this for a while. He did it with Bivol. That's why you lost to Bivol. You're loading up walking through the front door and try to like bomb out people. At the elite level, people aren't just going to be right there for you. You could do that in a street fight. Like if you got in a street fight with a novice because they don't know how to fight. They don't know how to fight, so of course they're going to get got with anything that remotely looks sneaky. But Crawford ain't no street fight, right? And some of these other fighters like Bivol, that ain't no street fighter. He's been practicing as long as you, if not longer, right? So again, some opinions take a little bit of time to marinate. So the question to you, don't lie, because I know a lot of y'all get on this internet and want to cap. My question to you is, now looking at how everything played out, it's not about having a horse in the race. Do you think this fight happening, Canelo versus Crawford, was the fight that boxing needed and did wonders for the division? And again, let's recap. Canelo looks cooked. People are making excuses saying Crawford cheated. They're saying that Canelo's washed. They're turning on him. Just put it that way, right? So that's one. So you had a face of boxing, and now the world is turning on him because he lost to a smaller fighter. If you lost to Beterbiev, if you lost to Morrell, if you lost to Benavidez, nobody would treat you like this because these were all bigger dudes. See, this is why I don't like certain fights like this, because at the end of the day, if you cherry pick and you fight someone, like if Danny Garcia fights Rod Salka, there's not really a benefit. You knock him out, which he did. Nobody's going to give you a bunch of credit for that. But then if he does good or hurts you, then people are going to be like, oh, Danny's chin is suspect. He sucked. You know what I mean? So these situations usually aren't good in boxing more often than not. And we're not talking about exhibitions. Exhibitions, they're telling you what it is. Like if you went to a Los Angeles Lakers and it says practice versus an actual game, then that's what you can expect. You're expecting a practice, or you're like looking at some kind of scrimmage, in a sport, right? That's that. Exhibition is exhibition. We're talking about real fights that affect the who's who of the division. The other thing is, now people are calling for Crawford to take all these tough fights against much bigger people. And it says Crawford's team reacts to a potential fight with David Benavidez. In my opinion, I don't mean to doubt Crawford. He showed greatness, but I don't think he fighting no David Benavidez. I don't think he is. You know what I mean? In my honest opinion. He's welcome to prove me wrong if that's the case. But see, that's what I'm saying. And then again, even if he does, who knows? David Benavidez, y'all were just talking about how big he looked ahead of the Anthony Yarde fight. He's fighting at light heavyweight, bro. So these turkey moves like this actually creates a ripple in the pond that's not really conducive. That's why I don't like it. It's the same thing that Turkey did with Bacoli, right? You took a guy off a great performance, Martin Bacoli, and you crashed him out and gave him no time to prepare or shed weight, and he get cooked by Joseph Parker. You like hurt his career when he had momentum, right? And then nobody else was asking for this fight, but really Turkey and maybe the Bud Buddies. But now you made it, and then now you have a division that's just on like pause until we know what Crawford wants to do or if he's hanging up the gloves. And then now people are telling Crawford to fight Bivol, Benavidez, Morrell. I heard Andre, Beterbiev. These fights don't really seem realistic to me, because I'll tell you what, Crawford's a great fighter, but none of these fighters are in the same boat as current Canelo. Like, meaning they're not like washed and throwing one punch at a time and stuff like that. So he would have to get in a different bag for these fighters. Canelo didn't even have a jab. He didn't have a jab, bro. David Benavidez has a great stinging jab where he'll walk you down. And he's taller than Canelo, younger than Canelo. It's just a totally different fight. And I know people will be like, oh, no, but Bud, he's Superman. Make the fight if that's what you want. But I would rather see it at 175 or not see it at all, because I don't like these fights. And then if he can't make the weight and look horrible because he weight drained, then it looked like you cooked somebody. You know what I mean? We've seen that. We've seen that in boxing where it just don't. So I told you, this, in my opinion, it wasn't going to bode well, because I already forecasted the fight, and I knew the outcome wasn't going to be what's right for boxing, I guess. Now Crawford, people are like calling on the Mexican monster. Yeah, you can't beat him though. You know what I mean? And then at what point when it comes to weight is it a bridge too far? Now people are going to say you're nobody until you beat him. So I really want to see Crawford ride off into the sunset, because they're always looking for your next opponent. And I think he should do either a novelty fight, like fight one of these UFC guys, do something like that. You've already set accolades, or, you know what I mean, retire and enjoy your earnings and your money. But Canelo looked cooked. And again, all this talk from Turkey about he want to make Benavidez versus Canelo, who cares now? This is why I didn't like the fight. And a lot of y'all hated on me like, oh man, what do you mean you hating? Bro, who needs to see if Canelo can't even like scrap with a welterweight and look impressive? You know what I mean? And fighting one-dimensionally, how can he beat Benavidez? Now, I told you Benavidez would probably get with Canelo for some years, and y'all said I was hating. But now after seeing Bud, I know Bud and Benavidez don't fight alike, but neither do Triple G, and he should have beat Canelo. You know what I mean? So the game, to me, the game looked cooked in these divisions, and that's typically not what you want in boxing. For example, like when Crawford beat Errol Spence, the welterweight division didn't look cooked, because we had to find out was Crawford staying in the division to fight Boots, or was he going to move up to 54? And he announced he's moving up to 54, right? So that was a new challenge. Cool, right? When Tank or Shakur have a good win at lightweight, you're like, man, these are top lightweights. Great. You know what I mean? But now Crawford beats Canelo up, dominates Canelo, and now people are calling for him to fight 175-pounders. When is it too much, bro? Now they're saying he has to fight Mexican monster to really prove himself, right? And he's talking about moving back down to 160, but not moving to 54. But 54 is a deeper division. I told you. You got Fundora, Lubin's fighting Ortiz. Boots just made his way, and he's about to have his first fight in a couple of weeks with Lima, right? So Turkey, I know some of y'all gave it credit like, oh, man, Turkey's saving boxing. But this style of matchmaking, it didn't save boxing. You just crashed out the face of boxing in Canelo and made him less desirable. All the while you had to overpay him. And then you put a bullseye on Crawford's back, where the only thing left for him to do is possibly fight maybe one of these big old guys that are way bigger than him, right? And hold up the division, when he could have just been fighting at 54, and literally he would have stayed at 54, and it's a deeper stacked division with more talent rich, right? 160 is horrible. You got Janabek, Lada, and Adames. And again, after fighting Canelo, I mean, are these big fights for Crawford to fight these guys? This would look like the rest of Crawford's resume prior to Errol Spence when he was with Top Rank. You know what I mean? Fighting Euro dudes and unknown people that he didn't really get credit for anyway. So I'm not impressed. You know, it was a great performance, but I stand by what I said from the beginning, because now the game is just in disarray with no real direction in those divisions. 160, I don't know if Crawford's going there or not. 168, I doubt he fights Diego Pacheco and then the front runners up there. 175 seems like a bit much to me. You know, Crawford, he could tell you different if he feels. He already told you he ain't going to 54. So, you know, you left a stacked division. Crawford always complained and said people didn't want to fight him. 54 had people that would fight you. Virgil Ortiz kept calling you out. Boots was calling you out. Turkey said both of those fights could happen. But it was Crawford who was like, nah. And then he picked on an older Canelo, who I told you before the fight, Canelo hadn't really been looking good. So you picked on the older dude. You beat him with the higher weight division. To be honest, some of these smaller guys like Fundora, Virgil Ortiz, and Boots probably would have gave you a better fight than that because they're fresher. They're not as big, but they're fresher. Like Boots has a jab. Virgil Ortiz is like very durable, and he hurt Madrimov more than Crawford did. So he's just very aggressive, and if you don't keep him off of you and honest, then it could get chippy. Fundora, I mean, the man's 6'6". So I still feel that Canelo was the name with novelty, but he hadn't been looking in prime. I already said that before this fight was even announced. So I think you would have had tougher fights. Anybody at 154 to 160 would have been tougher than Canelo after seeing how it all played out, and even before. So now your face of boxing, Canelo, looked horrible in back-to-back fights. William Skull, and I told you, I was like, man, he looked bad. And I was like, man, I'm going to give Canelo the benefit of the doubt that he's going to train different and train hard for a Terence Crawford fight. But he didn't. He looked in better shape and he looked leaner, but he said his body couldn't get going and stuff. So I think we've seen the best of Canelo Alvarez. Let me know what you think. I don't sound too off now, do I? We unpack.